Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads. The next Samantha story is Changes for Samantha. This is the sixth and final story. Chapter 1, A New Home. Samantha hurried along the city sidewalk with her skates slung over one shoulder. Oh, it was cold. She pulled her hat down over her ears and then rubbed her hands together inside her snug firm up. The wintry afternoon sky was pink, darkening to purple as she ran the steps to Uncle Gard and Aunt Cornelia's house. "Hello," she called out as she pushed the heavy door and came to the bright hallway. "I'm home." "There you are, dear," said Aunt Cornelia. She gave Samantha a hug. "I was afraid you'd frozen to the ice. Must have been awfully cold at the skating pond this afternoon. Come and sit by the fire and have some tea. That will warm you up." Samantha followed Aunt Cornelia into the cozy parlor. She sat by the fire and held her stiff hands up to the glow to melt the coldness away. This was Samantha's favorite time of day now that she lived in New York City with Uncle Gard and Aunt Cornelia. Every afternoon at dusk, settled all over the city, Samantha and Cornelia shared a pot of tea and chatted while they waited for Uncle Gard to come home from his office. This afternoon, Samantha noticed a big box on the tea table. A bit of silly pink ribbons was slipping from under the lid. "What's in the box, Aunt Cornelia?" she asked. "Valentines," asked Aunt Cornelia. She lifted the lid up and turned the box upside down. Out spilled loops of paper lace doilies, tiny red hearts, and sheets of paper covered with pictures of cupids and flowers. "St. Valentine's Day is only a few weeks away. I thought we'd better start making our Valentines now since we have so many to make this year," Samantha finished eagerly. She picked up a pink ribbon and two hearts. "My first Valentine will be for Grandmary and the Admiral, the newlyweds," smiled Aunt Cornelia. "I'll make two hearts joined together," said Samantha. "That seems right for people who just got married, doesn't it?" "Yes, indeed," said Aunt Cornelia. She began cutting out the pictures of cupids. "Oh, it's so romantic. I mean, the way Grandmary and the Admiral finally got married after being so fond of each other for all these years." "Mm-hmm," agreed Aunt Cornelia. "I'm sure they're happy sailing around the world on the Admiral's yacht," said Samantha. "I do miss them just terribly, but I'm glad I live here with you and Uncle Gard." "We're glad, too," smiled Aunt Cornelia. Just then the parlor door opened. "Begging your pardon, ma'am," a cool voice interrupted. It was Gertrude, the housekeeper. She was carrying the tea tray. Samantha sat up a little straighter. Gertrude always made her feel as if she was doing something wrong. Now Gertrude looked down at her long nose at the messy tea table covered with bits of ruined paper. "And where shall I place the tray, madam?" she asked Aunt Cornelia. "Oh, anywhere will do," said Aunt Cornelia. She didn't look up. She was busy pasting cupids on paper lace doilies. Gertrude didn't move. "Just put on Samantha's stool by the fire," Gertrude said Aunt Cornelia. "Yeah, Sam can sit on the floor." "The floor, madam?" sniffed Gertrude. "Yes," said Aunt Cornelia. "And Gertrude, would you mind fixing up another batch of flower paste for us, please? We've used up this jar." She handed Gertrude the sticky jar of paste. If Aunt Cornelia had handed her a pail of snakes and hop toads, Gertrude could not have looked more disgusted. She held the paste jar with the very tips of her fingers as she left the room. Aunt Cornelia brought Samantha a cup of sweet hot tea and looked down the Valentines Samantha had just finished. "Oh, how lovely," she exclaimed. "Grandmary and the Admiral will love it." Samantha set the Valentine carefully on a corner of the table. "Now we'll make one for Nellie. Because this one has to be especially pretty because Nellie is my very best friend in Mount Bedford." "You miss her a lot, don't you?" said Aunt Cornelia. "Yes," said Samantha, "and I worry about her too. She has to work very hard at Miss Van's sickness, and she's not very strong." Aunt Cornelia sighed. "But Nellie is better off here than she would be here in the city." "I know," said Samantha. When Nellie lived in the city before, she worked in a terrible, dangerous factory. It was horrible." "At least Nellie has a loving family to go home to," said Aunt Cornelia. "Lots of children who work in these factories are orphans. The lucky ones live in orphanages. The others live on the street." Samantha shivered. She had seen many poor, raggedy children in the city. She was glad Nellie was safe with her family in Mount Bedford, even if she was far away. "Maybe we could make Valentine cookies and send them to Nellie," said Samantha. What a good idea, said Aunt Cornelia. We'll make cookies for Nellie and Agnes and Agatha. And Uncle Gard, added Samantha. It will be a surprise for him. A surprise? Uncle Gard poked his head in the parlor. Are my two best girls planning a surprise party for me? Well, I've got a surprise too, he said. He reached in his pocket of his coat and handed Samantha a postcard and a letter. Ooh, look, said Samantha. It's a postcard from Grandmary and the Admiral. She read aloud Grandmary's elegant spidery script. My dear Samantha, the Admiral and I are sailing in the warm, blue-green waters off Greece. It's lovely. We're very happy, but we do miss our dear girl. Please give our love to Uncle Gardner and Aunt Cornelia. Ever your devoted Grandmary. Ahoy! What ho? XOXO, your Admiral. Samantha laughed. Look, she said, the Admiral drew a picture for all of us. She did the card to Uncle Gard and Aunt Cornelia, and she looked down at the letter over the lap. Jiminy, she exclaimed, it's from Nellie. She wrote down the envelope eagerly and began to read aloud. Dear Samantha, how are you? I hope you are very happy living at your aunt and uncle's house. I am fine, but... Suddenly, Samantha stopped reading aloud because the words were too horrible. She read to herself. I am fine, but I have some very sad news. The flu has been very hard here in Mount Bedford this winter. We all had except Jenny. My mother and father died. I miss them so much. Miss Van Sicklen says they are in heaven where God will take care of them. Mrs. Van Sicklen has been kind, but now we must leave her house. Bridget and Jenny and I are moving to New York City to live with our Uncle Mike. I will come to see you as soon as I can. I promise. Your friend Nellie. Oh, poor Nellie, Samantha whispered. Poor Bridget and Jenny. What is it, Samantha? Aunt Cornelia asked. Samantha couldn't talk. She was too afraid she would cry. She handed the letter to Aunt Cornelia. Aunt Cornelia and Uncle Gard read together. When they finished, Uncle Gard picked up Samantha and held her in his lap. Aunt Cornelia took both her hand. Sometimes, Aunt Cornelia said in a soft, slow voice, sometimes it's very hard to understand why such sad, sad things happen to good people, people we love. Nellie and her sisters are very young to be without their parents, but they have their uncle, and I'm sure he will take care of them. Uncle Gard cleared his throat. Samantha knew he and Aunt Cornelia were just as sad as he was. Nellie and her sisters will be in New York, Sam. They won't be far away. You will be able to see them and make sure they're all right. Is that so, Cornelia? Aunt Cornelia didn't answer, but she squeezed Samantha's hands. Nellie says she'll come to see me when she gets to New York, Samantha said. It was one of the good things in the middle of sadness, like one candle in a big dark room. Nellie promised to come, so I know she will. Oh, I hope she comes soon. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.